Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
So, got a question for you, MJ. Can you call it a football Friday if there is no Cardinals football?
Yes, because the NFL this is where we wish we were having this conversation. We wish we were breaking it down for the next 2 hours. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind wild card weekend. I know everyone says the divisional round, which are the 1 and 2 seeds, they got first round buys, and there's going to be a wild card you would assume is going to win. They say the divisional round's the best weekend in football, but I'm going to enjoy these wild card teams because they had to win down the stretch just to get in. And listen, Philadelphia, we know they have the talent. Can Nick Foles do exactly what he did a year ago? They got to go to Chicago. You know, the Rams. The Rams are a 2 seed. They may have to play, some difficult matchups before they even get to New Orleans. And if Sean McVay doesn't win a playoff game, he's going to be 0-2. We're going to be talking they're regular season ready, but not postseason ready. But so, we got some young quarterbacks.
Yep.
And that's appealing and, also interesting and optimism for Josh Rosen in the next couple of years.
Just one rookie quarterback in Lamar Jackson.
But some second years and third year guys in Mitch Trubisky. You throw in Jared Goff, he's in his third year. So Deshaun Watson, number 2 starter for him. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, Grialou.
4 games this weekend. We'll talk about Wild Card Weekend a little bit later on in the show, but let's tell you what as ahead as we take off on this Football Friday. Cliff Kingsbury, is he NFL head coaching material? Whomever the Cardinals head coach is, they must work well with Josh Rosen, and Patrick Peterson will tell you who believes this was his best season as a pro, despite what was announced earlier today. And of course, your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show here on this Friday. First things first, though, the news of the day, and a new name has surfaced within the Cardinals coaching search. Former Colts and Lions head coach Jim Caldwell. According to Adam Schefter of ESPN, Caldwell interviewed with the Cardinals yesterday. I mentioned, twice a head coach, very successful as well. 62 wins, 2-4 in the playoffs, and he also has stints with both the Colts and Ravens as an offensive coordinator, helping those teams to Super Bowl championships. So another former head coach in the mix, but Caldwell certainly the most experienced name when you talk about head coaching candidates with the Cardinals so far in this first week.
Yeah, and we're going to get into Adam Gase just because, they've had 2 guys in the building over the last couple of days, and both of these guys are former head coaches. They are more offensive-minded head coaches. They also can call plays. Jim Caldwell, maybe he didn't get the credit that he deserved in Detroit. I mean, they were 9-7 last year, and they took a step back. They fired their offensive coordinator, Jim Bob Cooter. Matt Patricia is going to have some time to get that turned around, but he's worked with Peyton Manning, well-respected in the industry. He's a guy that's called plays. He's worked with quarterbacks in the past. Worst-case scenarios, because he's been interviewing a lot of different places. Worst case for him, he's going to get back in the league. He sat out a year. Whether I'm sure he wants to be a head coach, but he's also being considered for an offensive coordinator if he doesn't land one of these head coaching jobs.
Of course, he interviewed with the Packers and Browns. The Jets reportedly interested in Caldwell as well. 63-year-old's actually spent this season sort of within the game, but he was a consultant with the XFL, so still involved in football, just not the NFL. But as you mentioned, MJ, he probably wants to get his feet back in the game.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're still getting paid from the Lions, and sometimes you got to take a step back. Some guys don't like to be away. They think it's hard getting back in. Jim Schwartz in 2015, he worked for the league office. He was grading the officials, okay? So he's working for the league office, keeping himself in the mix, watching film. Chuck Pagano, he decided to take a year off. He was working for the league office his previous year. So you're going to hear some of these former head coaches, Chuck Pagano, including Jim Caldwell, Jack Del Rio, where they realize they may not be getting another head coaching opportunity, but they're definitely going to be considered for coordinator positions.
You mentioned Adam Gase. Reports had him interviewing with the Cardinals earlier this week. In fact, the first head coaching interview of the Cardinals, and that was with the former Dolphins head coach Adam Gase, who today met and interviewed with the Jets. The Jets actually announced that on social media that they completed an interview with Gase. So 2 interviews in 3 days for Gase. He is certainly in demand after a pretty, I wouldn't say lengthy, but a successful, if you will, considering that division. The AFC East is owned by New England, but the Dolphins did get into the playoffs that 1 year with him as head coach, and he's certainly someone with that offensive background that the Cardinals might have an interest in.
Yeah, 40 years old. He's called plays. He's been a coordinator in different markets, so that helps where he's, coached different personnel. I mean, he had Jay Cutler when Ryan Tannehill went down. So I'm not saying Cutler's the answer, but I'm just saying in general. The thing is, they were still in contention week 15, week 16. Things didn't go the right way, and maybe ownership didn't see eye to eye. He definitely can be a little combative at times. He's got rid of a few mouthpieces there, Jarvis Landry, Jay Ajayi. He's a guy that's I wouldn't say he's set in his ways, but he's pretty confident in his ability. But he's done it before, and I think the Cardinals are. If we look at the 2 candidates that were in the building, Wednesday and Thursday, they both have NFL experience. They both have worked for quarterbacks, and they both have called plays before. So maybe that's the road they're leaning down, but you just never know.
So 2 candidates reportedly have interviewed, 2 more reportedly coming up this weekend. In fact, Saturday, according to reports, Saints assistant head coach and tight ends coach Dan Campbell, and then also Rams quarterbacks coach Zach Taylor. Campbell certainly has a little bit more experience than Taylor does at the NFL level, 3 seasons now in his current position, and he does have head coaching experience. And yes, I'll count the interim time he had with the Dolphins in 2015. He went 5-7 after Joe Philbin was fired. If we're going to give Bruce Arians credit as a head coach when he was the interim, then I'll do that the same thing with Campbell. So if you want to say 2.5 because he didn't have the official head coach tag, but another guy the Cardinals reportedly have on their list because they've been in that seat before.
Former tight end. He's a physical guy. He comes from the Bill Parcells School of Coaching, so there's really no nonsense. He doesn't have time for prima donnas or front runners, and he's the assistant head coach right now with the Saints, also coaching the tight ends. Again, he's a guy that can command the room. Players would respect him. You'd see more of a physical team. I know Wilkes obviously wanted to have a physical team coming out of training camp, but I think we were focused on the offense and defense, and maybe they got a little lost in the shuffle there. But who is the coordinators? I mean, who's going to do the play calling? Because he really hasn't had that experience. So who's your offensive line coach? But I do like him from a standpoint of a physical guy. When I say Bill Parcells, there's no nonsense. You're going to see a team that doesn't make a lot of mental mistakes. They're going to be really clued in when it comes to situational football. He coaches the smart way. Not saying that Wilkes and them didn't, but this team had a hard time finishing. Hopefully you won't see that as much in the future.
And then there's Taylor, the youngest of the candidates reportedly on the Cardinals' radar, and this is his first season as quarterbacks coach with the Rams. Last year he was the assistant wide receivers coach, so everyone is looking for the next Sean McVay. So what do? Well, you look at the Rams staff and you figure out who's on McVay's staff if you want an up-and-comer, and here's someone that I don't know if he's ready to be a head coach, but certainly perhaps because of the Rams' success over the past 2 seasons, ready for that next step forward in his coaching career.
Now, again, very similar to you look at the other coaches. He has a small sample of play calling. He did it for half a season. He did it in college, so he has been a play caller, just not he's been a play caller in the NFL like Dan Campbell was a head coach. But he's only called a certain amount of plays. But everyone thinks he's learned a lot working for Sean McVay, and everyone wants to pick their brain. Now, to me, if you're going to go that route, now you're starting to look at, okay, who are going to be the coordinators?
You want someone with experience who can sit there and help him out, can guide him a little bit.
And I'm just going to throw names out. Again, I'm not connecting dots. I'm just throwing names out. Like Todd Bowles, it doesn't appear that he's getting a head coaching opportunity right now. He would be a wanted man as a defensive coordinator. Chuck Pagano, if he doesn't get a head coaching opportunity, he'll be wanted. Jack Del Rio wants to get back in. He's not getting a third bite at the apple for a head coaching job. So you're going to see these guys go in there, and Todd Bowles, he may be a wanted man. So it's going to be interesting to see if you hire a young coach like this, who are his coordinators, who are his offensive line coaches. But there's some quality coaches that could be coordinators in the NFL.
So that is the latest on the Cardinals head coaching search, at least what has been reported so far here in this first week. Some announcements here on this Football Friday. The Associated Press came out with its all-pro team, both first and second, and no Cardinals honored. A little bit of a surprise. Patrick Peterson finished 5th in the voting, so just missing inclusion on the second team. Andy Lee finished tied for 4th, and Chandler Jones, despite 12 sacks, didn't receive any votes. And there were guys that finished ahead of him in the voting that had fewer sacks than Jones, who was an All-Pro a year ago, along with Budda Baker, who made it on special teams. But the Cardinals, one of 9 teams that were shut out as far as All-Pro consideration by the Associated Press.
Yeah, Andy Lee was a guy that you thought would get a little bit more consideration. But
he certainly had the numbers.
He had the numbers, but again, when you're on a 3-win team, you're not going to get the numbers. And Patrick Peterson, to me, he's coming off his best season. And so I thought he was worthy of being one of the top 4, whether it's second team or first team. So from that standpoint, but Budda Baker didn't play as much on special teams. Zeke Turner, for a while there, was kind of leading in special teams tackles, but he didn't get as many in the second half. David Johnson, obviously a disappointing year. So I think Patrick, you can make the case that he was snubbed. As for the other guys, I think it's wide open.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame finalists announced 15 modern-day era candidates, including 3 with Cardinals ties. Head coach Don Coryell, who coached the then St. Louis Cardinals from 1973 to 77. Guard Alan Faneca, who spent 1 season with the Cardinals in 2010. And then running back Edgerrin James, who was with the Cardinals from 2006 to 2008 and had a couple of 1,000-yard seasons, plus leading the Cardinals or helping the Cardinals get to the Super Bowl. So those are 3 of the 15 finalists with Cardinal ties, and the Hall of Fame 2019 class, as to say, will be announced the night before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and for those Cardinal fans that remember them being in St. Louis, Eric Coryell, he was a guy that was willing to throw the football down the field. You had the Bill Walsh West Coast offense. Alan Faneca, if he walked in here right now, you wouldn't notice him.
To half the size.
And, and obviously one of the best guards in football, played for a lot of good teams when he was with the Jets, came here, towards the end of his career, but he really carved his teeth or his niche in Pittsburgh. That was when they were running the football with Jerome Bettis, putting up big yards. And then you look at Edgerrin James. I mean, I think you want to say he got benched under Wisenhunt and that earned his spot back, and he gave him a little lift in the postseason there. But he was here for 3 years, 16 touchdowns, close to 3,000 yards. And so I loved that covering edge. I remember when we arrived at the Super Bowl, there was like this, I don't know, it was a Ferrari out there just waiting for edge. And he said he was going to ride off in the sunset after that.
And I believe he did.
I think he played in Seattle.
No, but he what was it? The story was he didn't come back with the team.
Yes.
He left from the team hotel in that Ferrari.
Right, exactly. But I want to say he finished his career with the Seahawks.
Yeah, one more season after that. And one other announcement, this via social media, rookie tackle Corey Cunningham tweeted late yesterday afternoon, surgery a success, road to recovery now, already looking forward to next season. Didn't specify what kind of surgery, though, putting the 1 and 1 together to get 2. He suffered a foot injury late in the season. In fact, that game against the Rams, and was placed on injured reserve on Christmas Day, which opened up a roster spot for DJ Swearinger. So assuming Cunningham had foot surgery, don't know the extent, don't know how serious, but at least via social media, he sounded in good spirits.
Yeah, I'm disappointed for him. I wanted him to finish a year. Obviously, you don't know when injuries are going to occur, but the good news is he's had the surgery. Now he's on the road to recovery. We're curious to see how much time he misses in the offseason, because worst case scenario, I think he's convinced people in the building that he could be a swing tackle, and he's got experience. He's got to get stronger too. He's got to get better in his hand placement. But for the most part, the fact that they got him in the 7th round, it's encouraging that you can build some depth. But obviously, we know they need frontline starters first.
It is a Football Friday here on Cards Cover 2 as we broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, of course, doing so in our Bose QC35s. Want to go back and get a little discussion going here on the coaching search, and one name that has been brought up a few times now, and that is Cliff Kingsbury, former Texas Tech head coach, current USC offensive coordinator. He's been linked to the Cardinals. He's been linked to the Jets, and I think an intriguing name. On initial report and seeing his name tied to the Cardinals, you're thinking, what do they want to do with a college head coach who wasn't all that successful? I mean, he finished with a sub-500 record, but the more you dive into it, and there's been more stories written about Kingsbury and what we've seen on how this offense in the NFL is moving closer and closer to the college model. Yes, Kingsbury at Texas Tech, they put up a lot of points. They gained a lot of yards. In fact, during his 6 seasons at Texas Tech, he had the 12th, 16th, 1st, 2nd, 10th, and 8th offense as far as yards per game. Whether it's, as you keep saying, a fact-finding mission, but certainly Kingsbury and a head coach in the NFL, whether it's the Cardinals or Jets or whomever, something that I don't know if I'm on board with, but I'm certainly willing to listen and learn a little bit more just because of what we've seen so far in the last year and a half, 2 years, with where this offense is going in the NFL.
Yeah, I think when we mentioned Zach Taylor, I put him next to Cliff Kingsbury, just a situation. Obviously, Taylor's been in the NFL, but he hasn't been a head coach. And you look at Kingsbury, I mean, we went through the quarterbacks throughout the course of his career there. The thing is that a lot of people didn't think the air raid offense would be successful in the NFL. We watched RG3 come out. Maybe he was running more the read pass option, the RPOs, or he was in the zone read. He wasn't going to last. He was getting tackled like a ragdoll. So now what Deshaun Watson is doing and some of the Patrick Mahomes, they feel like that air raid could work in the NFL, spread him out. So knowledge-wise, he's really good at it. I mean, his expertise is play calling, aggressive play calling. Now, the drawback would be you can't afford to go 3 and out. I mean, because you're high tempo, not saying you're not going to be in a huddle, but it could be a hurry-up offense where you don't huddle so the other team can't make substitutions, but you want to be on the ball and you want to create matchups. So him, very similar to Taylor, he's got to work his NFL connections. And I'm sure he has an agent that has a lot of coaches on his payroll or they're employees of him, that he would be able to reach out. And again, those were the other names start to come in. Caldwell could be offensive coordinator. Then we talked about Todd Bowles. Doesn't appear that he's getting a head coaching gig, so he could be your DC, or Dak Del Rio or Chuck Pagano. So I would think he's going to get some help when it comes to if he's ready. Now, he stays at USC. Clay Helton going to get fired next year, and he could be the head coach. But clearly, he's listening, and teams want to talk to him because of Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, not so much Case Keenum because he doesn't run the same system. But now we're starting to see that come in the NFL besides just the RPO, the read pass option.
Well, remember, when he was let go at Texas Tech, there were several teams, according to reports, that reached out to Kingsbury, and whether it was to hire him or at least just to talk to him, but at least one team that went public with their interest in Kingsbury is the Rams. Sean McVay thinks very, very highly of Kingsbury. In fact, told the LA Times, quote, "He's got a lot more experience in a head coaching role than I do," which is true, 6 seasons at Texas Tech. But if you look at McVay, what did he do when he was hired by the Rams? He put the defense in the hands of Wade Phillips. What did Matt Nagy do in Chicago? He put the defense in the hands of Vic Fangio. So it's not like you couldn't do that with someone like a Cliff Kingsbury, where you sit there and go, okay, you're the head coach. We know you're more suited with offense, but we'll give you a veteran on the defensive side and a veteran defensive staff on both sides of the ball that can tell you and teach you the NFL level, because he played on the NFL level as far as practice squads, but he has zero experience on any staff, on any level in the National Football League.
Yeah, but that's where a lot of these guys start. You know what Bill Belichick's first job was? Driving to the airport, picking up the film for Ted Marchibroda and bringing it back. That's how long time ago it was, and he worked his way up. Obviously, his father was a coach, but sometimes that's where you got to start. Now, to me, when you look at Kingsbury, I think if you were Steve Wilkes, there's no way you can come in here and say, Mike McCoy, you're going to be the head coach of the offense. That would have been a disaster. It already was. So Wilkes had to be known because you really want to hear one voice when it comes to being a head coach. But because of Wade Phillips' skins on the wall or credentials, Wade was able to pull that off with a veteran team there. Matt Nagy, he was smart enough to say, you know what? This defense is close. We just need a pass rusher. We need to draft a little bit better. I'm going to keep the guy that's been here, Vic Fangio. So those were smart. That where Nagy could say, yeah, he's the head coach of defense because of their experience. Same thing, I would put Todd Bowles in that conversation. And Todd's not going to overstep his line. He knows what it's like to be a head coach. So, but he'll alleviate some of that, pressure and stress that they have daily. So those would be ideal situations if you're going to go down that road with a young coach that hasn't been in the NFL but's been a previous head coach in college and called plays, or a guy that's been in the Rams system for at least a couple years now, wide receiver coach, now quarterbacks coach. He obviously, Sean McVay sounds like if somebody wants to hire him as a coordinator, they're not going to allow it. They would give him a promotion as the title of OC.
Of course, it needs to be mentioned when you talk about the Rams and the Bears, their defense, Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack. It makes it a little bit easier. Although case can be made with the Cardinals, with Chandler Jones and Patrick Peterson, two guys, whether they were snubbed this year as far as all-pros, certainly in that mix of highly successful and highly rated defensive players.
I'll put Budda Baker in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, you start looking at, they have talent on this team. It's just, again, they weren't playing to their strengths.
Not saying that Kingsbury is going to be the guy, but it's not as far-fetched as maybe I or anyone else had thought maybe earlier in the week, or even if you had asked 2 or 3 weeks ago, because I went back and looked. It wouldn't be the first time. It doesn't happen a lot, but most recently, Chip Kelly made the jump from college to the NFL without any NFL experience, even as an assistant or a coordinator, and he was successful that first year with Philadelphia, and then it kind of dropped off, and he had eventually went back into the college ranks.
Well, he went to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that didn't work out either. He only lasted a year with the 49ers. But, of course, when you talk about guys that make that jump that had the most success, Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, both made Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and Johnson, he was 1-15 his first year.
That's right, yes.
And Troy Aikman didn't win that game. I think it was Steve Berline maybe. Anyway, so, yeah, I mean, those are interesting. Now, you look at Urban Meyer when he was at Utah, okay? He goes to Utah. And then he goes, was it Florida, Ohio State, back to Florida, and then Ohio State, right? He went to Florida, and then he went to Ohio State.
Correct, yes.
But, I mean, nobody knew about Urban Meyer. I mean, so you got to start. I know it's college. I'm just saying you got to start somewhere. And sometimes just to get your foot in the door, you got to be a quality control coach, which is you're just gopher. You go do this, get this coffee. I'm being serious, but you're in the building, though. So they all got to start somewhere, but let's just handicap what we know based on reports. They haven't interviewed a defensive-minded coach yet, correct? We don't know.
Or even linked.
So everything's been offense, former head coaches, Caldwell, Gase, 2 up-and-comers, Taylor, and then you throw in
Campbell.
Taylor and Kingsbury, and then you throw in Campbell, who had a stint.
Yep.
But also doesn't call plays. So everything's geared towards the offense right now.
Absolutely.
Right. And I the only other option I would say would be like a guy like Todd Bowles, but if you can get him to come in here as a coordinator, that's a home run. Yeah. Or there's other qualified candidates too, though. I wonder if Todd's phones is ringing or he's just saying, I'm just waiting.
Yeah, that's been very quiet on his front.
Well, if he gets one interview, then all of a sudden people start getting worried. Now, Chuck Pagano, his agent's done a really good job. I think it helps that he worked in a league office. Jim Caldwell, he's on one of the committees when it comes to minority hiring. His agent's done a good job getting him out there. So that's what you have to do. It only takes one, and then all of a sudden teams like, are we missing out on something? We have to do our due diligence. You know what you got to do is you got to cast a wide net.
And that's what the Cardinals are doing. Of course, right now, that wide net is all with offensive-minded head coaches, and something that last night on the Big Red Rage, center A.Q. Shipley talked about when asked whether the Cardinals need to look at an offensive-minded head coach moving forward.
Everybody knows the future's Josh. drafted in the first round.
It's almost like you have to go with an offensive-minded coach.
I think
correct?
offensive-minded coach. I think that's the route they're going to go. I have no idea which route they're going to go, but I think that's after we just went the defensive route. I think now, knowing Josh is the future moving forward, I think that's the route they'll go. And with the Andy Reids, the Sean McVays, the way the Chargers have done things, all the misdirection, creativity, getting your eyes one way, doing different things, kind of that type of creative type offense. I think they're looking for a young, innovative type of offense to kind of grow with Josh.
Yeah.
Good to hear Shipley's voice, a guest last night on the Big Red Rage with Paul Calvisi and Ron Wolfley, along with host DJ Humphreys. And everyone's pointing to that relationship, that development of Josh Rosen. So whomever the head coach is that comes in here and takes this job with the Cardinals, you better make sure that your first phone call maybe to a player, okay, maybe your second. Your first is going to be the Larry Fitzgerald to make sure you get number 11 back in the fold. But Josh Rosen needs to be up there, and that communication needs to establish early and often, because he is first and foremost the guy that you want this franchise to be built around. So developing him, and of course, as we always talk about, protecting Rosen is priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll just go down the list.
Yeah, I was listening to Doug and Wolf this morning as I'm driving in, and I thought Wolf, brought up a good point. In this interview, we know what they want to hear. We like Josh Rosen coming out. We think he can be a franchise quarterback. But what do you like about Josh Rosen? Let's dive a little bit deeper. Is it the play action? Is it between the ears? Is it his arm strength? Because we know he's got to work on accuracy. He's got to work on reading defenses, and that can be taught. That's coachable. Like, what do you say? I want your observation on Josh Rosen from pre-draft to now, and they'll watch film together. So I thought that was a good point, because we all know everything's hinged on Josh Rosen. And I got 3 things that I want to bring up that I think can help develop him and protect him. Now,
should I write these down?
No.
Okay.
It's going to be pretty simple. First of all, we all know that they have to commit to the offensive line. And I think on paper, going into camp right now, off-season workouts, whatever, left guard, Mike Upati's contract voids, I believe they're going to move on. Mike still wants to play. You and I talked to him.
He wants to get a 10th season.
Right. We talked to him. He went through some injuries this year. So I always want to give him credit because he was playing through some major injuries. Unfortunately, his body is breaking down. So left guard is wide open to me. They want to leave Mason Cole at center. He played every single snap this year, like Shipley the last couple of years. Shipley may have missed 2 or 3 snaps. They want him they think he's a natural center, even though he did play tackle in college. So they're going to keep him there. Right guard, Justin Pugh's making a lot of money, $9 million a year. They need more from him. So on paper, left guard and right tackle. Now, where do you find that? There's a couple free agents out there. That's the first thing that has to happen. They have to go out and address left guard, right tackle, create some depth, re-sign John Wetzel. Shipley right now will be your backup offensive guard, backup offensive center. Got Corey Cunningham, so I want to build some depth there.
And don't forget DJ Humphreys at left tackle.
DJ Humphreys at left tackle. Healthy, though. He's got to be healthy. So right now I think there's 2 open jobs on the line, but I also want to create some depth. And that can be in free agency or draft or trade. Second thing is, and I think it gets a little lost because of the season, David Johnson. He had a healthy season, so we can't use the word injury prone. He played all 16 weeks. They got to find a way to get him involved. Offensive line, by protecting, will open up holes. But you get the running game going, it's going to open up play action for Rosen. I want him to get back up to 1,500 to 1,800 yards. I want him bell cow on the offense, 25 to 30 touches. Moving the receiver sometimes. Put Chase Edmonds in or another running back if you think.
It takes the pressure off of Rosen.
All these things take pressure off of Rosen so he can succeed, but also we could see the upside. He was running for his life this year. The third thing, and I haven't forgot about the tight ends and wide receivers. They have to adjust that both in free agency and the draft. I'm doubling up. I'm signing a wide receiver in free agency, maybe 2. I'm drafting 1. I'm doing the same thing at tight end. They have a lot of youth on this roster. Christian Kirk, Trent Sherfield, Jalen Tolliver, Chad Williams, if he's still here. They need experience. And I mentioned drafting a guy or 2. But you still possibly have Larry Fitzgerald in that room. Christian Kirk will be in his second year. Hopefully one of those other 3 guys can step up. And then tight end, I don't know if they're going to move on from Jermaine Gresham. I know he brings some toughness and tenacity to that position, but they got to try to find a middle guy that can catch the ball and become a better blocker. And then Ricky Seals-Jones needs to develop. So if there's three things I look at, I think out loud, those things have to happen if you want to put Josh Rosen in the best opportunity to succeed. Disagree?
No, absolutely. I agree with everything you said. And we'll label it Mike Jurecki's 3-point plan to make sure Josh Rosen is a successful NFL quarterback. Speaking of Rosen and what his potential could be, Shipley again last night on the Big Red Rage asked about his impressions on the young quarterback.
I think he's a heck of a leader. I mean, he came in from really day one because Sam didn't do any of the OTAs, and I thought he commanded the huddle well. I thought he's obviously super talented, being a top 10 pick and one of the better guys coming out of college last year. And this year was just a tough situation because, again, you don't have your starting offensive line. You don't have different guys in different positions that are key early on that can kind of get you going, get some chemistry. But he hung in there. He fought. He battled. He threw some great throws. He led some comebacks when he needed to. He led some game-winning drives when he had to. And there was plenty of great promise to show moving forward.
You know what I learned last night on the Big Red Rage? What his first and middle name is.
I did, and I'm blanking on what it is. Do you remember what it was?
What do you want, the middle name or the first
Just
name?
both, because both were unique.
Alan Quay?
I can't remember. Was it Alan?
Yeah.
Alan Quay.
I believe so.
So
Q-A-Y.
But it was brought up, but the follow-up was, well, why not just go by Alan? Like, where did the AQ come from?
The Q...
Like, who started calling him AQ? Just why not Alan
Probably
Shipley?
his family, I would hope.
Well,
you don't give yourself a nickname, right?
Well, some
you
guys
could have called
do.
him Alan. Quay is, I want to say, for maybe his grandfather.
We need AQ Shipley back. We need another interview. I mean, we haven't heard
this
from
guy's
him.
he's got a life after football.
Absolutely. Well, he's one of our favorite interviews when he's playing, and then when he doesn't play, he kind of disappears.
And we see him all the time rehabbing
Yeah.
as we're going out to the field, and we say, when you coming on the podcast, just call me. Why haven't
it
you
doesn't
called
work.
him?
It's not that easy, but we'll keep trying here on Cards Covered 2 as we come to you on a Football Friday from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, broadcasting in our Bose QC35s. And earlier in the show, we told you that Patrick Peterson was not named to the Associated Press All-Pro first or second team. Certainly something that I'm sure he is not happy about. But earlier this week, Pro Football Focus honored Peterson with a second team honor as far as their own All-Pro team. And interesting, they gave Peterson an overall grade of 82.3, the best of his career. Question is, though, MJ, was 2018 the best season for Peterson?
Yes.
Numbers-wise. I mean, analytical, because it's not numbers,
just eye
not
test.
Tackles or interceptions. It's the analysis, the
No,
analytics.
I know he gets ripped a lot for not tackling. I get that. I mean, he's a cover corner, probably more like Deion Sanders, Champ Bailey. Those guys didn't tackle. I get it. I know that he's a football player. He's 1 of 11. You have to tackle. But, I mean, teams – in that last game against the Seahawks, you know how many targets he had? 0, which means 0 catches. He only gave up 3 touchdowns this year. Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of the stats, my eyes tell me
yes,
he was more involved in the defense because he bought into Wilkes and Holcomb initially. Now, obviously, he had his day where he was requesting a trade, but he was a guy that enjoyed playing in this system. Now, I don't think they were sold on the miscommunications. One minute they're playing man, next minute they're playing zone, another thing they're playing a cover 2. I think that was a little confusing at times, but watching him play week in and week out, I think it was his best year.
He did get Pro Bowl consideration or a Pro Bowl selection, but we know Peterson likes he likes those honors because it builds up his resume because he wants to be a Hall of Famer, and that's totally acceptable. So the one thing I'll say about being snubbed off the All-Pro, he is certainly going to be highly motivated going into 2019 to prove everyone, hey, don't forget about 21.
And 3 of the 4 guys are on playoff teams.
And that factors in
Yeah.
more so than maybe it should at times, because some guys that don't have the numbers get credited for being on good teams, and then guys that are on bad teams just don't get enough of consideration.
And the other guy is Xavier Howard, who I think is the best player on the Dolphins defense. Maybe you can put Cameron Wake, who's up there in age. They're in the contention until week 16. I know the voting was done prior to that, but I'm just saying in general, the Cardinals only had 1 primetime game, and we know how that went. So you got to get more primetime games, but at least if he gets 7, 8, 9 wins, you start to become that conversation. Unfortunately, that didn't happen this year.
So left off the Associated Press All-Pro team, but Pro Football Focus put him, Patrick Peterson, on the All-Pro team. They believe it was his best season of his career. The question posed to Patrick Peterson earlier in the season, is 2018 your best season?
I have no idea because I don't know how those guys really, grade people's play, because I feel like, although I'm playing a little bit more off and I'm not getting much action, I mean, I'm not complaining at all, but I'm just trying to figure out how is this my better year when I felt I played way better in previous years. So, but those guys are behind the screen and pushing the pencil. Thank you. And hopefully I can just continue getting better. I think I am having a pretty solid year. I think I wish I can take have a couple plays back, but overall I think I'm, staying pretty, playing P2 football.
Athletically, are you still at the same point you were younger in your career? Have you made up for anything mentally, or do you feel like you still have everything you always had?
Oh yeah, I think I still got everything I got. Everything I've had since I came to the league. That's crazy you said it, because I was just telling my personal coach, that it felt like I still feel like I'm a rookie. My body-wise, the way my body feels. When I wake up in the morning, I don't have any aches or bruises. Walking fine, having a lot of energy. It's just I still feel like a young player, which is good. So I want to make sure I continue to have that same desire for the, as Aaron said it the other day, getting ready for that back nine, because I'm going into year 9 next year. So I just have to make sure I do some of the things that help me be successful in the first 8 years of my career.
That Aaron reference, Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers quarterback, as we continue here on Cards Cover 2.
Does that mean he's going to play 18 years?
I'm sure he could. He keeps himself in great shape, but that's a lot of years of football.
Now, I did exchange messages with him today, and you're exactly right. He said, I'm going to be better in 2019.
Brandon Natus, Cardinals manager of social media, joining us here on Cards Cover 2. Before we, though, get to Birdgang Sound-off, we do want to take a moment here. When we touched on it at the start of the show, it is a football Friday, wild card weekend. There are 4 games, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. On Saturday, Colts and Texans, Seahawks and Cowboys in Dallas. One way, either way, or favorites or intriguing matchup at all for either one of you?
Well, we'll focus on that. Do you guys have any road teams winning this weekend?
I think the Houston.
I think the Seahawks win.
I think
so.
The
You got them
Seahawks
beating the Cowboys.
Yes,
but I think the Houston Indy matchup is kind of interesting because they're playing for the 3rd time.
And both meetings though in the regular season, the road team won, and it was only by a field goal.
And both only scored 58 points.
And both were really hot. They both started out kind of slow, and then just caught on fire.
If I have to pick a road team, and I'm not comfortable with the young quarterback, but they rely on their defense, and that's the Bears. I think I may lean with 3 road teams and 1 home team.
So you're going Eagles over the Bears.
The Eagles are the...
No, I would take the Bears. I'm sorry, I would take the home team and the Bears. I would take 3 road teams, but if I'm going to take one home team, I would take the Bears over the Eagles.
Saturday, Colts at Texans, Seahawks at Cowboys. On Sunday, the Ravens host the Chargers, and the Bears battle the Eagles in the Fog Bowl, revisited 30 years after the fact.
All right, Brandon, you were telling me something earlier. You have some connected dots thing?
Kind of very, very, very random, but a weird similarity between this year and last year. So the 2017 Rams, first-year offensive-minded head coach with a second-year quarterback, had 10-plus losses the previous year, became the number 3 seed. That's both the Rams and the Bears. Same exact scenario. Who did they host? The team that won the NFC the previous year.
So they lost to the Falcons in the playoffs.
Lost to the Falcons.
And now they're going to play the Eagles.
And now the Bears will play home to the Eagles. So Bears had 10-plus losses last year, hired a new head coach to coach their QB. He's now in his second year.
Are you making a prediction for 2019 then?
I don't know. Take with it what you want, maybe. I mean, well, there's going to be a couple of teams with double-digit losses that will have probably offensive-minded coaches with their second-year quarterbacks. But I think it will be interesting. I mean, the Bears have a really, really good defense, which is different than how the Rams, obviously made it. But man, that Nick Foles is a heck of a story, and that's just a team. Same thing that has a lot of playoff experience, and
I mean, looking at Nick Foles, obviously they're committed to Carson Wentz, but he's going to be a free agent.
And that's the thing. That's the difference between last season and this season. He was under contract for this year, but next year he'd be free to go wherever he wants.
I think the biggest he'll be probably the top name. I think teams will be interested in Joe Flacco. I think teams will be
could be his final home game this week.
Teddy Bridgewater, Tyrod Taylor, and then what happened with Bortles and Tannehill. So those guys will be free agents first, and then we'll figure out who's going to move up in the draft. But so if you had to make one prediction, who represents each conference?
All right, so I like the Saints because I like their defense is playing really well. And
Number 1 seed.
And there were reports that their defensive coordinator actually got a head coaching interview with a team.
He's done a nice job there.
Yeah, and he had
Dennis
Allen. He was the coach of the Raiders.
You know who the co-defensive coordinator is? Mike Nolan.
Used to coach the Niners. Wear the suit on
another former head coach.
So I like the Saints. I could honestly see. I know this sounds crazy. I could see any team from the AFC representing the AFC because the bottom 3 teams have all been so hot. The last.
That's how you got to get in as a wild card sometimes.
Especially the Chargers, who play a lot on. It seems like on the road. All right, I'll go Patriots though.
So 1 and a 2 seed, agree?
Bears, Patriots.
I like the Saints. I mean, I think the Rams could put points up there, but they have to go there, and that place is going to be loud. And I'll just take Brady and Belichick. It's boring, but I'll just take a 1 and a 2 seed. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Brandon.
I got another crazy stat for you regarding Tom Brady. So Tom Brady, this is his 19th season, but he's had 18 full seasons. His rookie year, if you take out his rookie year and the year he tore his ACL, 16 because his rookie year didn't play. 8 of the 16 times he has been in the Super Bowl, 50% of his career. He's been in the Super Bowl in 12 of the 16, which is 75%. He's been in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, I'll sign up for Breeze and Brady in the Super Bowl.
Not bad.
A lot of people want to see that. And also 6 of your 8 division winners, 3 or less years of experience for their starting quarterbacks, which gives teams of young QBs some optimism.
Man, my head's spinning right now.
Sorry.
All right, Brandon, we brought you in instead of numbers. We got Birdgang Sound-off here on a Football Friday. What do you got for us?
All right, first question comes to you from Twitter. Going along with the playoffs, obviously, nothing has been confirmed as far as who the Cardinals have interviewed for head coaches, just kind of reports out there. But some of the reported candidates, I don't think there's any that are coaching teams in Wild Card Weekend. Do you think the Cardinals, though, do have an interest in a coach that is
playing this weekend?
Yeah,
that's a good question. I wouldn't mind maybe talking to Vic Fangio, the Bears defensive coordinator, although he's made it very clear.
You said defense.
I said defense, absolutely. I said defense, but he's made it very clear that he's focused on the playoffs right now and not so much on what happens next season.
Yeah, I would think so. Maybe possibly on the Colts staff. I do think there's guys they still want to get in front of just to pick their brains and see where they are in their coaching career. Yes.
Switching to a non-coaching question now, although whoever they pick as a coach could factor into these decisions. Do you see Marcus Golden and Dale Buchanan coming back this year, or do you think they'll be looking at replacements?
I think a lot of it depends on who the head coach is, but if I'm going to choose from right now, Marcus Golden is back, Dale Buchanan is not.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on who the coordinator is and the head coach. He's obviously going to have say in the roster, but Marcus Golden wants to be here. He's part of their core moving forward. Give him a full year to come back from that injury. Probably going to have to sign a 1-year deal, loaded with incentives, and then you can extend him during the year if you feel like he's worthy. And then you throw in Daniel Buchanan. I mean, I don't know if there's a big market out there. According to reports out of the trade deadline, Betcher and Bowles didn't have a lot of interest. Now circumstances are different. If you're going to play a true 3-4, I would try to retain Daniel Buchanan, a 1-year deal, prove-it deal, and then maybe you can extend him based on how he plays.
I might be completely way off base, but I think it might be easier to re-sign a Golden than it is a Buchanan, just based off what has happened specifically this past season.
Sticking with the defense, but switching over to Instagram now. Should the defense switch back to a 3-4?
Tell me who the coordinator is.
I don't know.
No, I mean,
But, yeah.
but some of these guys have been 4-3, 3-4. What's the personnel? I mean, I know it's a loaded question, but if I had, because again, Pagano, Bowles, Del Rio, they've all coached in a 3-4 and a 4-3. So, and I'm just throwing those names out there because they're former head coaches that look like they may not be getting head coaching gigs.
I think it's a factor in what happened this season, but you can't pin it strictly on that because I think a lot of it has to do with the players adjusting, and then when they don't adjust or show that they can't adjust, then your coaching staff needs to adjust, and neither happened this season.
I think it's just as important to get a corner opposite of Patrick Peterson because now you can do a lot. You can play man press coverage at the line, and then if you win some one-on-one matchups. So a lot of it's going to be based on personnel, but you're hiring somebody because of their expertise and knowledge in that field.
But with some of the guys on the roster that they have right now that are building blocks moving forward, do you think there's one that makes more sense than the other?
Well, they're going to have to add some linebackers. They lack depth there. We'll see what Zeke Turner is. I like the 3-4, but the 4-3 benefits Robert Kemdichia. Who knows? He's going to be on the roster. When is he available next year? I think Hassan Reddick's kind of found his role. Josh Bynes would have led this team in tackles this year. He's healthy. He had a wrist injury. I talked to him. He's not even rehabbing. So, again, you got to find depth because they like that rotation until a couple guys went down, Olsen Pierre and Kemdichia. I just think we got to wait and see based on the personnel. And plus, teams are going 3 and 4 wide, so you're going to be a nickel and dime.
Yeah, there's a lot of times there's not
perfect world.
Defense.
Your base defense is on first down, usually on second and third down. You bring in your nickel or dime package.
Thank you. We'll get to one more. When do you think the new coach will be hired?
Sooner rather than later.
Nobody knows. I mean, last year Matt Nagy was introduced on January 8th. They kept Fangio, so they didn't make as many. He brought in Mark Helfrich. I think it kind of reminds me when Kirk Cousins signed last year, and then next thing you know, Case Keenum signed with the Broncos, Bradford signed here, Josh McCown signed with the Jets, Teddy Bridgewater signed with the Jets.
So you're saying you're waiting, or teams are waiting, or
no,
the first domino?
Yeah, like who's the first domino to fall? Because now all of a sudden, if teams are interviewing the same guy, like Josh McDaniels, is he really interested in the Packers job or the Browns job? Is he really going to go? So once we see one,
and with McDaniels, you actually have to ask that question.
Mike McCarthy, is there one job that he's eyeing? Is it the Browns or the Jets? I think once we get one of those guys, Adam Gase, where does he go? Once we get one of those guys, I think you're going to start to see other teams, and then teams are going to have to wait until after we get to the divisional round, if not the Super Bowl. But guys can't agree to terms, and don't pull a Josh McDaniels from a year ago. So I would be guessing. I would hope it's, once they get through all their interviews, and I still think they're going to be doing interviews early part of next week. That's just a guess.
And then I'll throw one additional one in here. Just want one answer from each of you. Who would you want as the next head coach of the Cardinals? If you're picking, if you're in that room, who's your? Obviously, you're not in the room, but who would you pick?
Off of who's
based
been
off
linked,
of everything
anything?
everything you've read, what you know about the candidates, what you think the team needs. Who is your selection?
I want someone, or the preference, a former head coach, and even though I keep saying you can't limit yourself to just offensive guys, I'd love to have a head coach with offensive experience. I'll go Jim Caldwell.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued with all 4 or 5 candidates. So I think Taylor and Kingsbury have something to offer if you get that defensive coordinator. I like the fact that they're interviewing 2 former head coaches that are not far removed from coaching. Caldwell is only out 1 year. Gase has got fired last week. And then Dan Campbell. I mean, I know I'm dodging the question, but
you're doing a pretty good job at it.
No, but I want to know who the coordinators are.
Yeah,
I believe, Brandon, you asked for just one word, right?
Or just like one.
Sorry, Brandon.
It's fine, guys.
I'm hedging my bet.
That's good.
MJ doesn't want to be wrong.
He doesn't know who's watching. They could all be watching our social media.
No, I don't know, but I mean, I think they have a good pool of candidates.
Yes.
I mean, it's a little bit of everything. You get a Bill Parcells type coach in Campbell. You get 2 young, innovative play callers in Taylor and Kingsbury, and then you get 2 former head coaches who, to me, have NFL ties for coordinators and offensive line and quarterbacks coaches.
What are you going to do if they end up hiring someone who's not so so far mentioned as one of the reported people, then you didn't cover your,
No, you
cover your
accept it.
basis.
You accept it.
No, I'm just teasing.
Listen, I trust Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim.
Yeah.
Listen, you guys know how excited and optimism and hope for the offseason. I mean, let them do their job. I mean, we're not going to know for at least a year, right?
Yeah, sometimes longer.
Hopefully longer. And whoever they hire for the next head coach, I hope he's here for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I know that's not the business, but if you find the right guy, we're not having this conversation.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon.
How about he throws us on the spot? Well, who do you want?
Who do I want as the head coach?
He's got to be somebody from
whoever is
Jacksonville.
good social media wise.
Yeah, whoever has. Do you want? If I'm given a name, I think Cliff Kingsbury is actually very intriguing. Just purely because of the social media.
Yeah,
just so we, if we're
Ryan Gosling lookalike.
They said he looked like Ryan Gosling, so we, hit all kinds
it's
of.
It's okay to be
selfish,
selfish, though. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole fashion segment with him, and then if the team's scoring a lot of points, makes for lots of tweets and lots of engagement, and all the fantasy owners are paying attention and all that stuff. So it's very selfish. My reasoning.
At least
maybe you should be in the room.
At least you're honest about it.
I mean, if I could go for head coach, I'd take the paycheck.
All right, Jimmy Omohundro, our fine producer. We want to know do you know this right now? We don't know if we're on. We don't know if we're home or away next year.
Week 1
doesn't matter. But
September
what's the week
2019?
Give us the week 1 uniform.
Cardinals are wearing
all
what?
Right, so if we're away, my guess is white on white. If we're home, it's red on white. But let's see, 2016 we opened up at home. 2017 we opened up on the road 2 games in a row. Last year we opened up at home. So let's say we open up away, and then we would.
Would you guys sign up for Browns Cardinals in week 1? State Farm Stadium.
What if BA gets his
who's on the sideline for the
I'm
Cleveland?
thinking Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
Not worried about Bruce Arians.
You could return to Freddie Kitchens if he's still on their staff. Could have a lot of good storylines.
Plus, the Cardinals play the Bucks if he gets that job.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting. I mean, whoever gets.
And the NFL schedule makers, they do try to be cute with this stuff, even though they're not rookies anymore.
Oh, they look for matchups.
Headline.
Yeah.
Mayfield, Rosen, coming up on CBS. Maybe Arians is announcing the game.
Could be.
Working way ahead here.
I have no idea. Do you want me to predict your lottery numbers or anything like that for you?
We're good.
I wish I could do that. I'm sorry.
We're good.
Appreciate the Birdgang sounding off here on a Football Friday. We do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here. Joined on Fridays by Brandon here. And, of course, appreciate everyone sounding off using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2. And that's going to wrap up this edition of Cards Cover 2. We'll rejoin you on Monday. We'll talk a little bit more playoffs and a head coaching search update. Have the Cardinals hired a head coach by Monday? Probably not, but who knows?
Do you see there's other teams out there say they have a mystery candidate? And that was Dennis Allen. That was the mystery candidate in Miami.
I'm not aware of the Cardinals having a mystery candidate.
Maybe they do. Maybe it's Jurecki.
Maybe.
I stay in my lane. They know more. They've forgotten more football than I ever know.
Special thanks to everyone involved in the show behind the scenes: Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Jeremy Schnell, for Brandon Natus, Mike Jurecki, future head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I'm Craig Grialou. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday here on Cards Cover 2.